Despite conceptions of brutal workloads and little free time, medieval peasants actually had more time off than many realize. In fact, they worked fewer hours than many today do. Here's how. A typical medieval workday stretched from dawn to dusk, for 16 hours in summer and 8 in winter. It is important to note that it was very unusual for serfs to be required to work a whole day for a lord. One day's work was considered half a day, and if a serf worked an entire day, this was counted as 2 days' work. The labor could be back-breaking in less than sanitary conditions. Peasants typically planted rye, oats, peas, and barley, and harvested crops with a scythe, sickle, or reaper. They were also expected to build roads, clear forests, and work on other tasks as determined by the lord if they lived on a manor by a castle. However, there were breaks for breakfast, lunch, an afternoon nap, and dinner. There might also be mid-morning and mid-afternoon refreshment breaks. After a harvest, peasants might enjoy up to 8 weeks off during slack times. In fact, during a good harvest year, a peasant might only work 150 days. Remember also that the Catholic Church held more power at the time, and one could not work on a religious holiday, of which there were many. In fact, there were 60 religious holidays per year. If you're curious as to how many hours one worked during those 150 days, the typical English male peasant worked roughly 1,620 hours a year. For reference, an average American in 1987 worked 1,949 hours. That being said, not everyone approved of how much work the peasants did. The Bishop of Durham once complained, "The laboring man will take his rest long in the morning. A good piece of the day is spent afore he come at his work. Then he must have his breakfast, though he have not earned it at his accustomed hour, or else there is grudging and murmuring. When the clock smiteth, he will cast down his burden in the midway, and whatsoever he is in hand with, he will leave it as it is." So if our peasant only spends a little less than half the year working, what did he do the rest of the time? The answer is a lot of the same things people today do. There were sports, such as mob football, where teams from different villages tried to capture a ball and bring it to their goalpost, which was usually their church's front steps. Matches could last an entire day, with injuries varying from bruises to death. Despite the risks, medieval mob football remained popular throughout Europe for centuries and was only banned in England in 1314. There were also the 60 religious holidays mentioned earlier. These could be joyous or mind-numbing. They were spent both in sober church-going and in feasting, drinking, and merrymaking. In addition to official celebrations, there were often weeks' worth of ales to mark important life events, bride ales or wake ales, as well as less momentous occasions like lamb ale. So you'd have weddings, funerals, and birth of livestock. However, there were also differences in amount of holiday time between countries. In medieval England, it took about 1/3 of the year. France is reported to have guaranteed 52 Sundays, 90 rest days, and 38 holidays. In Spain, travelers noted that holidays totaled 5 months per year. And that was the typical work life in the year of a medieval peasant. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment, a like, subscribe if you want, or check out the tip jar. There's always more history.